Childhood trauma, part 16, I think. 16, not 15, I think. Um, anyways, so I was talking about codependency in the last one. I'm going to be talking really fast because I'm beating, like, dying phone. It doesn't work anymore, so I'm fucking over it. uh, so yeah, I was talking about shaving and how, like, every time, like, she said no to something, I would, like, try my best not to show my disappointment. Because with anything that I've ever asked, if I show disappointment, then she tells me that I'm not mature enough. My mother. So it was really hard for me to get my needs met if I couldn't take care of it myself. Um, there was a few times, like way earlier on in life, like it made me remember that I actually had gotten a bike for Christmas one year, and um, my mom was supposed to help me learn to ride it, but she ended up taking a phone call and never coming back outside, so I ended up getting training wheels. And I just used the training wheels until they literally fell off, and then I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And it actually wasn't until I turned 15 that I got another bike for Christmas. And the only way I learned how to ride it was my uncle actually explained the science behind me staying on the bike. And so I took that information and transferred it into like motion so that I could actually learn how to ride a bike. And from then, I didn't have any issues. Now, at the same house, I didn't know how to swim. Nobody could teach me how to swim. So I first started with training myself to hold my breath. Because if anything, it's not the moving through the water that's the problem, it's not being able to hold my breath long enough to get to the surface. So I started training my breath, training myself to like hold my breath longer and longer and longer until I was trained up enough to move from one end of the shallow pool to the other. Did that, trained like that on my own, until I got confident enough to go further. And each time I would just sit at the bottom of the pool, hold my breath for as long as I could, go back up to the surface before, I really got in a pinch. Until I could go all the way into the deep end. And I had trained myself so well I could handle up to 9 feet, which is why I wanted to be a fucking swimmer because I absolutely love the water. So, yeah, I taught myself how to swim. Driving was the only thing I couldn't teach myself. So, yeah, if I ever needed, I hated asking for shit. This is why I don't ask for help to this fucking day. I hated asking for shit. If I needed something essential, like toiletries or something, I felt like it wasn't going to fucking happen. Like, now, mind you, we usually always had stuff, but my biggest fear, even now, is always running out of stuff. So I've actually caught myself overbuying things, and sometimes I forget that some of the stuff is perishable. I'm just so like ingrained to be worried about running out of stuff, so I don't need to request or go out or get it some kind of way. I always try to keep stocked up because if I don't have it, then it makes me feel unsafe. And so a lot of the essential things that I learned throughout life, like shaving, took a lot of coddling my mother to get her to teach me so that I could undo the damage of me expressing any kind of frustration from a look in my eye to a breath, so I could be taught to do it. And she would teach me, but I had to go through hell just to get taught to do these things. And with driving, no, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that was the hill she was prepared to die on. And so After me asking during my college days because I needed to get a job, that didn't work. So I ended up doing work study at my at that first college that I had. Um, I was really close to graduating when that college closed, and I ended up not getting my degree. Um, and then the new school wouldn't take me, but it took my mom's program. And so, again, I actually ended up getting a job at a fast food restaurant after doing work study because I quit work study, went to the fast food restaurant. I never learned to advocate for myself, so I was actually working for free, and there was a whole lawsuit about it. It was Chipotle. Um, Still never got any compensation for that. And then um, I actually we actually had a friend from that same college that had closed living with us who also got accepted into the new school. And he was the one actually taking me back and forth from work because it was too much for my mother. And so he actually became the transportation for all us kids. But he also had his own he had his own life and he didn't plan on living with us forever. So he couldn't do it, teach me to drive all the time. And I only drove home one time because his husband at the time actually forced me to drive because I was terrified and it wasn't so bad. And I was like, okay, cool, I could totally do this. I convince myself when I need something that I'm afraid of it because my mother doesn't want me to do it. And I learned that I did that. And so, lo and behold, that didn't work out. He actually ended up moving out because he decided to go somewhere else after he had graduated. I moved out sometime later after my school closed and I couldn't find another job and she wasn't really willing to help me. So I ended up moving out and in with somebody else. I'll give details on these specific moves later. But when I moved back, because I moved out, and then when it was close to time for me to get, come back and move back in, my sister was talking about, oh yeah, mom after you left was just like, I'll get you, I would have gotten her a car, I would have taught her to drive, I would have done all of this stuff. And so, yeah, I did end up moving back because the situation that I had was falling apart. And so I did move back into the house. And you know what I did immediately? Start looking for a fucking job because I didn't like not having money. I'm a Taurus. And on top of that, I like to be fucking independent. And she did not like me to be independent. And this shit was fucking frustrating. And so I immediately tried to look for a job. I immediately was trying to make sure that my phone stayed on so that I could get these job interviews. Now, mind you, I might actually have to go into another video on this, but mind you, she was still refusing to actually be of help. I got taken to interviews and walked home. None of it by her. It was always somebody else taking me or picking me up. If I asked her to do it, it was an absolute no. And at one point, my phone was actually off, and I had to just walk home, hoping that I could figure the way, because I had actually gotten driven there by one of my sister's people at the time. It was fucking ridiculous, and I absolutely fucking hated it. But I needed the job, so I committed. So yeah, I walked miles to back home in flats. And so, yeah, I ended up, we're just going to switch over to another video.